This is the new Peugeot 408, and in this video we're running you through all the details we have on Peugeot's latest new model. But before we get into that, if you want to see all of our other reviews and first looks, make sure you subscribe to our channel and go to whatcar.com for a great deal on your next car. So the 408 is a new name for Peugeot, and you can think of this car as sitting between the 308 and the 3008, and underneath it is quite similar to those cars. But the car that this is actually most closely linked to is the Citroen C5 X. Underneath, these two cars are very, very similar indeed. And you can see they've got a very similar shape as well. So just like the Citroen, at the back of the 408 here, you've got this sloping roofline, which kind of makes this car difficult to pin into one class because it's a bit like an SUV, it's a bit like an estate car actually, and because of this roofline back here, it's also a bit like a coupe. So Peugeot's spin on the C5X formula gives us a car that's got a similar shape, but obviously a very different look. So down at the front here, this is very clearly a Peugeot. You've got these Fang LED daytime running lights, which you see on lots of other Peugeot models. You've got this massive new badge in the middle on the grille too. And you've also got this reworked grille. And apparently this look is something we're going to see on other future Peugeot models as well. The alloys on the 408 range from 17 inches up to 20 inches and include this new alloy design for Peugeot, which is exclusive to the 408. Now this is a 20-inch alloy, and if you like it, you can only have it with the top trim in one of the plug-in hybrid models. Now inside, this is basically the interior that you get in the 308. So that means that you have Peugeot's iCockpit layout, which gives you this tiny steering wheel and a digital driver display that sits above the steering wheel rather than being in a position that you look through the steering wheel to see it. Now, as with all other Peugeots, this setup, this driving position is something that isn't going to work for everyone. So what you have to do before you get a 408 is just sit in one, take it for a test drive and check that it works for you. And the problem to look out for is when you have the wheel and your seat set up for how you want to drive, you might find that the top of the steering wheel cuts off quite a big chunk of the driver display. Now, the problem isn't as common and isn't as bad as it was in earlier Peugeot models that first changed this kind of layout. It's getting better in all their new products, but it's still not going to work for absolutely everyone. Now, the infotainment system in the 408 is the same one that you get in the 308. So you've got this 10-inch touchscreen up here, and you've also got this touchscreen which has a few shortcut buttons down here. Now you can customize what they lead you to exactly, and by the standards of touchscreen things in cars, this is actually reasonably useful. That's mainly because, yes, they're touchscreen buttons, but they're pretty big. So each one has got a very clearly defined space that you need to hit. So it's reasonably easy to use that on the move. And below this, you've also got some physical shortcut buttons still to control certain elements of the climate control and take you to the shortcut menus on the touchscreen itself. Although it is still a shame that with Peugeot products and with Citroen, that all the climate controls are still within the touchscreen itself. And that is just really frustrating to use while you're driving. Now, as for the rest of the infotainment system, the graphics look really nice, but it's got quite a confusing layout. And also the screen can be a bit laggy and slow to respond as well. So it's not one of the worst systems out there, but there are better infotainment systems than what's on offer here. What is good in this interior though is the quality. So these materials feel pretty plush, it all feels really sturdy. And yes, there are some cheaper feeling materials lower down, but overall, this is a pretty nice interior up front. Now the overall dimensions of the 408 are very similar to the C5 X, but actually the 408 is a little bit shorter than the C5 X. However, the distance between the front and rear wheels is exactly the same as it is in the C5 X. So just like in that car, in the 408, rear legroom is really, really good. So you can see you've got absolutely loads of room to stretch out and relax in. It's basically like a limo in that regard. The only slight disappointment back here is headroom, because it's okay, but if you are over 6 foot and sat up straight in the back, then your head is going to be brushing the roof lining. So it's just a bit of a shame that you've got such good legroom, but then headroom isn't equally as generous as that. But still, overall in the back, this is a comfortable place to sit. The 408 offers 536 litres of capacity, which you won't be surprised to hear is very similar to what the C5 X offers. And just like that car, the 408 has this massive hatchback opening, which is nice and practical and should make it very easy just chucking stuff in the back of this car. And also the load bay itself is pretty open and big. It's a very simple shape. So that is all pretty practical. If you go for a plug-in hybrid version of the car, like the one that we've got here, then that overall capacity is slightly reduced because you lose out on some of the underfloor storage compared to the non-plug-in hybrid versions of this car. But still, this is reasonably practical. If you compare it against something like a Skoda Superb Estate, which is a properly huge and practical car, then that does have a bigger boot. But still, this should be reasonably practical. At launch, the 408 will be available with one petrol engine, which is called the PureTech 130, and that's something we've seen in loads of other Peugeot models and is a pretty good engine. But you'll also be able to choose from two plug-in hybrid options in the 408. So that's the Hybrid 180 and the Hybrid 225. Now, both of those versions get a 1.6 litre petrol engine paired with an electric motor, and they both get a 12.4 kilowatt hour battery. Now, Peugeot hasn't said officially how far those cars will be able to travel on pure electric power alone, but the same setup in the C5 X, which remember is very closely related to this car, has an official range of 37 miles. There is also expected to be a fully electric version of the 408 due within the next year. Now, it hasn't been confirmed yet, there aren't any details on it, but it's probably going to be called the E408, and there's a good chance it will have an electric range of more than 200 miles. And that car will be a rival to other EVs like the Kia Niro EV and the Skoda Enyaq. So that is everything we know so far about the new Peugeot 408. But what do you think of the car? Tell us in the comments below. Does this look better than the Citroen C5 X? And if you do like the C5 X, by the way, we can save you more than £2,000 on that car right now on whatcar.com. Just click on the link at the top of the screen to go straight to all of our deals. But before you go anywhere else, make sure you subscribe to our channel to see all of our other first looks and reviews.